What if the number standing between you and financial freedom isn't 6 figures? Or even 5 figures, but something so small you've probably dismissed it your entire life? What if the biggest lie about investing isn't risk or timing, but the belief that you need a lot of money before money can start working for you? Because once you slow down and run the math, something uncomfortable and empowering appears. The minimum you need to let money work for you is surprisingly little. The reason most people never find out isn't because the answer is hidden. It's because they never ask the question the right way. We imagine investing as something that happens after success. You get stable first, you feel rich first, then you invest. But compounding doesn't reward success, it rewards time. And time doesn't care how much money you think you'll make later. Time only cares when you start. That's the uncomfortable truth buried underneath every retirement success story and every financial regret. So let's ask a very specific question, one almost nobody asks honestly. What is the smallest amount of money you could invest one single time, walk away from completely, never add another dollar to, and still end up financially secure decades later? No monthly contributions, no side hustles. No, I'll add more later. Just one seed, planted and left alone. This exact framing matters because it isolates the raw power of compounding. And the results are surprising. Before we can know the minimum you need today, you have to know what you're aiming for later. This is where people get it wrong. Ask 10 people how much money you need to retire, and you'll hear everything from $500,000 to $10 million. The internet loves big, scary numbers. But when you look at real data, a much calmer picture emerges. Across multiple studies, the average retired household spends around $60,000 per year. Not a luxury lifestyle, not scraping by. Just a normal life, housing, food, healthcare, and some room for hobbies. That number alone deflates a lot of the panic. Most people think they need their full working income in retirement, but that's rarely true. Mortgages get paid off, commuting ends, and life simplifies. So how do you safely turn a pile of money into $60,000 a year without running out? This is where the 4% rule comes in. It's a conservative baseline built on historical data through good markets and bad. Using this rule to generate $60,000 per year, you'd need a portfolio of about $1.5 million. Now, that's the number that scares people. Saving $1.5 million feels impossible for most of us. But here's where the conversation usually stops too early. That $1.5 million figure assumes you get zero income from anywhere else for the rest of your life. No Social Security, no pensions, no part-time work. Just a vacuum where your investments have to cover everything. That's not how retirement works for most people. Social Security alone changes the math dramatically. For a typical two-person household, combined benefits often land around $40,000 to $50,000 per year. Let's use $48,000 as a realistic midpoint. If Social Security covers $48,000 of your $60,000 annual spending, your investments only need to generate the remaining $12,000. So the real question is, how much do you need to invest to generate $12,000 a year? Imagine you need $60,000 a year in retirement. If you plan to fully fund this yourself, you'd need a portfolio of about $1.5 million, assuming a safe 4% withdrawal rate. That's a huge number. But now, let's factor in Social Security. Let's say it covers $48,000 of your annual expenses. Suddenly, your portfolio only needs to generate $12,000 a year. At that same 4% rate, you only need $300,000, not $1.5 million. $300,000. That's a $1.2 million difference in required savings, all because of one assumption. Now that we have these two targets, $1.5 million without Social Security and $300,000 with it, we can finally see how compounding works its magic. To do this, we need a realistic return assumption. Historically, the U.S. stock market has returned about 7% per year after inflation. Nobody knows the future, but we'll use this as a reasonable, grounded starting point. Let's start with the extreme case. No Social Security, full self-funded retirement. Your target is $1.5 million. If you are 40 years away from retirement, you would need to invest roughly $100,000 today and never touch it again. Left alone at 7% real growth, that one-time investment could grow into your $1.5 million. If you're 30 years away, that starting number jumps to around $200,000. 20 years away, it climbs to nearly $400,000. Every decade you wait almost doubles the amount you need. This is the price of time. Now, most people hear that and say, who has $100,000 just sitting around? And that's a fair point. But this isn't about how people actually invest. It's a thought experiment to show the raw power of compounding when it has to do all the work by itself. Okay, let's get back to reality and bring Social Security back into the picture. For most people, ignoring it is actually the unrealistic assumption. With Social Security covering most of your spending, your investment target drops to just $300,000. So, what does that look like? If you have 40 years until retirement, you'd need about $20,000 invested today just once. If you have 30 years, you'd need around $40,000. And if you have 20 years, you'd need about $78,000. These numbers feel almost fake compared to the first scenario, and that's why people underestimate how powerful time really is. Retirement isn't just about massive savings. It's often built from multiple income streams working together. Of course, the idea of Social Security makes people nervous. We've all seen the headlines about insolvency and cuts. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If Social Security were to completely collapse, the economic chaos would be so massive that your personal retirement portfolio would be the least of your problems. Markets, jobs, everything would be under stress. Planning with Social Security isn't blind optimism. It's just realism. And here's the final piece that changes everything. You don't need that entire lump sum today. The numbers we just talked about were for a never add another dollar scenario. In real life, people invest gradually over time. When you add even modest, regular contributions, that required starting amount drops even further, making it far more achievable than you might think. The key isn't having a huge pile of cash right now. It's understanding the forces at play and getting started, even with a small amount. Did you know that someone who maxes out a Roth IRA for just 3 or 4 years in their 20s can set themselves up for a future that feels effortless decades later? It sounds crazy, right? But it's true. $20,000 or $30,000 invested early on can snowball into hundreds of thousands without any heroic effort. That's not luck. That's just time doing the heavy lifting for you. A famous real-world example of this mindset comes from none other than Warren Buffett. He has often pointed out that the overwhelming majority of his wealth was built after he turned 60. It wasn't because he suddenly became smarter or found some secret formula. It was because compounding finally had enough time to truly accelerate. His early years weren't flashy. They were patient. And that's the key. Patience, when paired with time, scales in a way that's hard to comprehend. Here's something that trips a lot of people up. Compounding doesn't reward the person who invests the most money. It rewards the person who gives their money the most time. Think about this. 2 investors can end up in the exact same place at retirement, even if they contributed radically different amounts, simply because one of them started earlier. Let's imagine one person invests $100,000 at age 25 and then never adds another dollar. Now, picture another person who invests $300,000, but they start at age 40. Despite investing 3 times as much money, the late starter could easily end up with a similar or even smaller balance when they retire. It's not because they made a mistake or chose bad investments. It's because they paid the time penalty. This is why the minimum amount you need to let your money work for you is so much smaller than most people think. The real barrier isn't a lack of money, it's delay. If you're in your 20s right now, listen up. The most powerful financial move you can make isn't trying to pick the next hot stock or chasing crazy returns. It's simply starting. Even a modest lump sum, invested and then just left alone, can become the backbone of your future financial security. Now, if you're in your 30s or 40s, the numbers are a bit higher. They are still far from the panic-inducing figures you see people throwing around online. And if you're starting even later, clarity is your best friend. Knowing the math allows you to adjust your strategy. You can save more aggressively, maybe retire a bit later, or spend a little less. You can even use Social Security strategically. There are always levers you can pull. Panic hides them, but clarity reveals them. So what is the minimum you actually need to let your money work for you? The truth is, there isn't one universal number. It all depends on two variables: your time horizon and your assumptions about the future. If you plan on Social Security being part of your retirement and you have decades ahead of you, the amount you need to start with could be shockingly small. As we said, $20,000 invested early can completely change your entire financial trajectory. If Social Security isn't part of your plan, the number is higher, but it's still far more achievable than most people assume, as long as time is on your side. The real lesson here isn't about hitting some specific dollar amount. It's about understanding leverage. And for ordinary people, time is the most powerful financial leverage available. Once you start using it, money stops feeling like something you have to chase forever. It begins working quietly in the background, turning your patience into real progress. That's the true magic of compounding. It doesn't just grow your money, it buys you options. It buys you freedom. And most importantly, it buys you peace of mind. And all it asks for in return is that you start even before you feel completely ready. Thanks so much for watching. If this gave you a new perspective, hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.